Hello, everyone. We are kicking off July, which is National Minority Health Month. And I can think of no one better than to talk to than my best friend, Delicia Potter. Delicia is a English teacher at our local private school that I also work at. And she is just the most inspiring, and you would never know if she is feeling bad, but she has had to navigate a lot of health challenges over the years. And Delicia, I feel that everyone could learn and benefit from your story. So I really appreciate you joining me today. Um, so thank you.
You're welcome.
So the first thing I wanted to ask you was to summarize some of the health challenges you've had to navigate over the years.
The major health challenge that I've had to navigate is my diagnosis of lupus.
Mhm.
I didn't get a lupus diagnosis until until 2020. So for
Good
the
timing
last,
to get a diagnosis too.
right? I got COVID and I didn't get better. And they called us long haulers. And I was seeing like five or six different doctors. And my pulmonologist was like, hey, I think you may have like one thing. And you're just going to all of these different people. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Test me for it, whatever, whatever. And they were the two things that he thought were either lupus or sarcoidosis. Um, One is worse than the other. I tested positive for a lot of the markers that they test you for with lupus, and then he referred me to a rheumatologist. So some of the challenges that I've experienced in the last 5 years have honestly been just navigating it, just figuring out lupus can be very isolating. So everyone that has lupus has a different experience. There are some similarities across the board, but I have what's called SLE lupus, and it affects if you see something popping up, that's my puppy. Um, I have SLE lupus, and it affects my entire body. So all of my body systems, all of my organs, my central nervous system, everything. And there are so many things that pop up with lupus. So, for example, we started noticing that extreme temperature changes would have effects on my fingers and my toes. They would go numb. They would not necessarily change colors because I'm darker skinned. And that's also been a bit of a challenge with my lupus, is because some of the markers that you would get from like sun exposure, for example, you'd get a bright butterfly rash on your face. I am very dark chocolate. So if I'm changing colors, boo, something is wrong.
I remember you
um,
having that conversation with your
I
rheumatologist.
did. And she, bless her heart, we were still wearing masks and she was like, I told her, I said, when I go outside and if I'm outside for any length of time, and at that point in time I was going outside for long periods of time because I have three children. And I think, gosh, at that time I think they were all under the age of 10.
Mhm.
um, we were going to parks, we were, doing walks, things that normal families do. And the next day, I wouldn't be able to walk. Like, I would physically be unable to get out of bed. And she was like, you could be having a reaction to the sun. Like, that's common for people that have lupus. And she's telling me all the indicators. And she was like, and you'll see a bright red butterfly rash. And like, I'm looking at her, bless her heart. I'm looking at her and I'm like, I will see a bright butterfly. I mean, if you notice today that there is a hint of blush, that is because I applied it. So um, just in being in the mindset that one, a lot of times the practitioners that are serving us and that are assisting us don't fully understand what's happening to us. And then as a person of color, if you have a practitioner that is not also a person of color, they don't necessarily think of how this is affecting you based off your skin tone, based off of like certain markers that you can see. Like if I break out in hives or I break out in rashes, my body's reaction looks completely different than what they've seen in a textbook, right? So just navigating those type of challenges. It's also been challenging to have like I was saying earlier, the pop-up symptoms, right? So Raynaud's is the condition with the fingers and the toes and temperature. Um, Random headaches for like absolutely no reason that aren't migraines. Um, Being in the sun and then getting sunsick and then not being able to walk. For me, that's my reaction to it. I don't get a rash. I get extraordinarily fatigued, very sluggish, and then inflammation, and then I can't walk because of the inflammation. Ellen, multiple times during the school year, I've come to school with a cane,
Mhm.
because like my hips and my joints and my lower back just weren't functioning in the capacity. Um, Challenges with, and I'm gonna be honest with you, biggest challenges are with my insurance provider, because the medicines that you have to take. I mean, I went from only using an inhaler, like that was the major medicine that I had because I've had asthma since I was like 5, to taking 8 pills a day, going for infusions every month. I know one of the infusions that I take every month, it's like $8,000 an infusion.
Yes.
And that challenge in and of itself, it's you're navigating the illness, and the illness is oftentimes exacerbated by stress, and you go into flares. And especially when you don't know what to expect, you're always stressed. So
Right.
you're always in a flare. So yeah, those are, I think those are some of the big things that I have struggled with over the last 5 years. And then honestly, the last thing that I would say is mental health. Because a lot of people, they may know someone who has lupus, but because it's so different for everyone, especially if you don't have anybody in your family that has it. I have no one in my family that has lupus. It's just not something that runs in our family that at least we know of. Um, so I haven't really had a lot of people that I could like sit down and talk to. Online forums are great, but sometimes they can be a little depressing. So it's very isolating. People care about you and they want to help you, but it's something that you kind of sort of navigate alone. But it is very important that you have mental health providers. It is very important that you have a counselor or a psychiatrist or a leader of someone, a spiritual leader, somebody that you can sit and unpack what this is. Because not only does it take a toll on your body, it takes a toll on you mentally as well.
Yes, I agree. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second because what you said earlier really made my wheels turn. So, you have a background in working in the medical field,
Yeah.
and I do too. And it just started making me think about like basic symptoms of first aid. You're looking for like a loss of color in your face, like
Yes.
pallor,
Yes.
or like inflammation, more color in the
Yes.
area.
Yes.
So when that's our basic criteria,
Mhm.
like what this may or may not come out right, but it just makes me like really concerned that when we're looking at people of color
Mhm.
and their skin tones are different, you're not going to see, I mean, you will see a loss of color because I've seen it on you.
You've seen it on me.
Um,
It's
but
gray. It's the pallor
but
of
it's
death.
going to, but like you said before, it's going to look different.
It is.
And if our medical professionals are not trained to look for those differences, then not everyone has your background and can
Yeah.
pick that up on their own. So they can be suffering,
Yes.
not know, have that stress of not knowing what is wrong with them,
Yep.
and nor do their medical professionals.
Yes. Like so something as simple as um I have like, so if I go into a flare, right, one of the things that's an indicator for me, not necessarily color, right, but I break out in hives.
Hmm.
And it only is on my arms and it's on my chest. But my arms and my chest are very brown. And
Right.
so I'm not red. It's not red and blotchy. It's literally just raised bumps. And sometimes, depending on how much swelling it is, you can't really tell. Like you can't really
And I was
tell
going to
that, oh,
ask, how many times did that have to happen before you realized what was going on?
it was like a year and a half.
Yeah.
It was like a year and a half before we were able to put together that, oh,
Yeah.
when this shows up here or this shows up on your arm or your shoulders, that's an indication that you are in a really bad flare. Um, and we go back to what you just said when we talk about what is in the textbook, right? So what is the default or what is the commonality, the norm? When you look at textbooks and you look at medical textbooks specifically, CPR textbooks, you look at first aid textbooks, the usually the default color of the example person is a fairer
Caucasian.
skinned
Yeah.
individual, usually Caucasian,
Yeah.
right? And because people of color come in so many varying shades, what would not show up on me as a dark skinned person, a deep dark skinned person, a brown skinned person who may be two shades lighter than me, you may see red on their face. You may see red in the rash. When we talk about, skin lesions, when we talk about those type of things, it shows up vastly differently. And if you
Right.
don't have a healthcare provider, like I said, that is a person of color, or who has even, and this is the thing, right? Even if your healthcare provider is a non-person of color, but they have serviced people of color, you cannot make the leap that they get it.
Right. Right.
Because my practitioner, as sweet as she is, as precious as she is, I know that she has other clientele. She has other patients that are black or brown, but she still looked at me and was like, with much confidence, "You're gonna have a bright red rash." Girl, no. Baby, no. I will not. We joke in school, and I tell you all the time, if I change colors, I'm about to die.
Yeah.
Please call 911, or it may be too late,
Right. Right.
right? If you see me turn gray, I'm dying. Please
Yeah.
get the assistance. But I'm not going to turn red. I'm not going to turn pink. My face is not going to flush. At least not in the stock standard way that you would see as the default for what you would be looking for that.
Right.
And as a person of color, a lot of times that's scary. I'll tell you another huge challenge when we're talking about that is, and I'm gonna be honest, practitioners not believing you.
Yeah.
Practitioners believing that when you say I'm in pain, that you have a higher pain tolerance. I don't. I don't. I'll fold like a deck of cards. Practitioners not believing you when you say I need certain medications or certain things work for me because you're drug seeking. I'm not drug seeking. Just because I'm black, I'm not drug seeking. It's it is wild the things that a lot of people learn in med school. I mean, for years it was taught. I mean, and for years, I mean, in the very recent past, it was taught that Black people had a higher pain tolerance than
I
white
don't
people,
understand that either.
which is insane, right? But we look at systemic racism and we understand that there were racist ties to that. So if
Right.
Black people have a higher pain tolerance, then we can experiment on them without giving them pain medication, without giving them sedation. So we can really see what happens. But those those ideologies and practices filter into today in very detrimental ways for people that look like me. Um, I remember I remember vividly being so ill and being so sick. My iron level was so low. It was, what was the number? I think it was a 3. My potassium was low. My iron was low. I was barely functioning. I would come to work. I would give everything that I had while I was at
Yep.
work. And I could barely walk up the steps. Also, I don't walk up the steps because I am the official elevator checker.
This is true.
I have to do the Lord's work. Who am I? Who am I to stand in the will of God? So, walking up the steps, I would have heart palpitations. I'm sweating. And then a lot of times people assume that if you're a larger person, and I was a larger person then, if you were a larger person, then oh, it's just because you're bigger. And that's a lie. Not everyone that is large has health problems. Like I had been, you know, thick fillet my whole life, you know, and I was healthy. Like I had I had low cholesterol. My labs were great. My blood work was great. My vitamins were, my everything was in order. I didn't have high blood pressure. I didn't have any of those things. After lupus, I have high blood pressure, which is crazy. Something I'd never dealt with in my life. But I remember going to her and she saw me. Like at that point in time, I think my practitioner was seeing me every 3 weeks, sometimes every 2 weeks. And I cannot do any of the things that I'm telling her. I'm telling her, hey, I feel bad. I'm not doing well. And she's like, okay, well, if we can just stick through it with this medication. And I remember it was like maybe a month into this. I'm sitting in her office and I'm not a crier. Like I don't cry. Mostly because I just feel like it wastes my time from what I could be doing. Like I need people to hear me. And like if I am crying, it's because I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
And I remember I'm sitting in her office and I'm sobbing and I was like, you have to help me. Like you have to help me. Like I have 3 children. I have to take care of them. I have a job. I have a life. And like I cannot do basic things. I'm coming home after getting my kids, making them dinner, sitting on the couch and
Yeah.
falling asleep. And then I'm in excruciating pain. I'm in excruciating pain. Um, and even then, it was like she had to see me cry before she was like, "Oh, something is really wrong." Very frustrating. And a lot of times, as a Black woman, I will say another thing that bothers me is because we are seen as strong all the time. Black women are so strong. You're so strong. I don't want to be strong. I am not Hercules. I am not Samson. I am just Delicia. And it's not it's not so much that I am a strong individual. It is that I know that little people and other people rely on me to do what needs to be done. And I don't have the opportunity to sit down and just say, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to have just a small mental health breakdown, just really quickly. I'll be back in 20 minutes. I don't have the time for that. So, you know,
That's my problem with mental load in the sense that people don't think it's real or
yep,
that it's a real problem.
yep,
And that's also my frustration with how we use the term self-care. I will die on that hill because we think self-care is just having that 20-minute menti break. And we that's not a long-term solution.
at
That's a
all.
response to stress in the moment.
Yes.
Um, or when you finally hit your point, like I need a second. That's not self-care.
No.
That's a band-aid.
That's a band-aid, that's a breaking point. And I love what you just said about that's not self-care because a lot of time for women in general,
Yeah.
it is branded that oh, self-care is that 20-minute bath that
I know that drives me nuts.
you get to paint your nails for 10 minutes. No, self-care is me being able to schedule a dental appointment
Yeah.
for me and being able to actually make it to said dental appointment. Self-care is me being able to go out to lunch with my friends and talk to adult women and not just a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 2-month-old puppy who refuses to sit down.
But she is
Right?
precious.
Self-care is more than a bubble bath. Also, I don't like bubble baths
I don't
because I
either.
feel like it's people soup. It's like gross. I don't understand the concept of sitting in your own dirt. Absolutely not. I now that's a hill that I will die.
I'll die on it with you because I don't
Like
understand.
that's people soup. Gross. No, absolutely not. Immediately no. I've seen what I need to see. No.
No, but I think a lot of times what is self-care is if you do have anxiety or you do
Yeah.
have a large mental load, and then we hit that breaking point, like let's find out what those triggers are and unpack them.
Yes,
That's self-care.
that is
Let's
self-care.
come up with a sustainable plan of how are we going to prevent you from getting to this breaking point in the future? Like, do we
Yes,
need to put in boundaries between work and home?
yes,
Do you need to ask for help? Do you need to broaden your village so that it's not all following on you?
yes,
That's self-care. That's
yes.
sustainable. That is not watching soap operas and eating bonbons.
No, that is not me eating bonbons and watching Bridgerton. While it is fun,
It is.
that is not what is best for me. Like that's not going to take away the stress. Like,
Right.
okay, I mean, a 40
That's a
minute show is gonna go
dissociation.
that. Right. That's disassociation. And again, you have got to have a mental health provider. I advocate all the time for women to get a mental health provider and and be open to the options that they give you. A lot of people are
Yeah.
very scared to take medication. A lot of people are very scared to talk openly with a stranger
Yeah.
about their stress and their anxiety, and they don't realize it. Um, the thing is, after I got diagnosed with lupus, it was about 2 years in that I got a mental health provider. I was like, I just can't navigate this by myself. Like, I feel like, and when I went to her, I remember the thing that I told her. I was like, I feel angry. I feel so angry all the time. Like, I feel angry and I'm frustrated and I'm mad. And those aren't usually things that represent me. Like, usually people are like, oh, you're bubbly. You're always hyper. It's the ADHD, but still, yeah. Um, and she was like, anxiety and depression show up differently in Black women, and we don't realize that. And a lot of times, anxiety and depression in us it does not show up as sadness and crying. It shows up as anger and getting things done.
Wow.
So I was depressed because I have this condition now. I have this chronic illness that I don't know what to do with, and it's changed everything in my life, right?
Right.
And I'm frustrated because I felt like my doctors aren't listening to me. I'm not getting the help that I need. I'm constantly in pain. I feel like everything in my life is falling apart. So I'm angry and I'm depressed and I'm stressed, but it's all tied into anxiety. And she was like, "You have anxiety." She was like, "You have anxiety." And I was like, "Girl, what? Not anxiety,
Welcome to the club.
right?" And I remember talking to her and I was like, well, so we went through a lot of things. We did a lot of talk therapy. We did a lot of just regrouping, like taking time in the day and like going over, like talking through my emotions, which all of those things weren't bad. They were good things. They helped. And then we explored maybe I should get some medication. And then I remember talking to my healthcare provider and I remember saying to him, I don't want anything that's habit forming. I want to be able to stop it on a dime and be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And that was the first time in my life that I literally took anxiety meds. And I was like, so you mean to tell me there are people walking through the day without a running list of activities that they need to finish that they feel overwhelmed by?
That's how I felt when I started. The fact that I had gotten to the point where I was just crying all the time. Um, and then when I went to talk to my primary care physician, was also crying in the room. She's like, yeah, I think maybe it might be time. Um, but when I started it, I was like, you mean people don't walk around with existential dread all the time?
All the time? What?
I was like, is this how normal people feel? They don't feel heavy?
So like when people lay down, their brain shuts off,
Well, I still have trouble with that, but not as
they're
much.
sleeping.
I know.
Like sleep is happening for more than 2, 3 hours. They're sleeping. This is unheard of. This is great. It's great.
Yeah.
And then like my life continued to, explode in various ways. And I know that I wouldn't have been able to deal with some of the things that I've dealt with in the last 2, 3 years if I hadn't advocated for myself.
Yeah,
Like,
that was the big one we talked about.
you need to ask for help. Be
Yeah,
vocal, be verbal, and get a second. If you don't like the opinion of the person that, if you don't like what that doctor has told you, it is not a marriage. You listen, you don't got to marry them, right? You can find somebody. Think of it like dating. We went to Outback. He was strange. I don't like him. I'm not gonna see Jeffrey again. I'm gonna see Marcus. If I don't want to see Marcus, I'm gonna see Josh. There is always another doctor. There is always another option. Get a second opinion, get a third opinion. But you have to speak up if you feel like, okay, I've been seeing this doctor for a year. I've been seeing this doctor for 3 months and it's not working. Don't sit there for another 3 months and
or
suffer,
longer, heaven forbid.
right? Just saying.
I think so. I mean, like as seventh grade teachers, we spend so much time trying to get our kids to self-advocate
Mm-hmm.
because it's such an important skill. And
It
we
is
try really hard to impress that upon them in their teenage years. But
100%.
it's hard. I mean, like I'll be the first to say, how many years did I go through not advocating for myself? 7, 8.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
I
so,
was
and
there. I witnessed it.
yeah, you did. And so, and I'm still not great at it, but I'm better.
Yes.
Um, but before I wouldn't advocate for myself, and then I would just get angry
Yep.
because I'm expecting people to read my mind.
That's
And
it.
the sad reality is nobody can read my mind. So I had to own that part and really start to find my voice and advocate for the things that I needed.
Yes.
And that takes practice.
A lot of practice.
It does.
And in the medical world, right, it's even harder because sometimes as the patient, you don't know what to ask. Like you don't know the words. Like you don't know, I don't know what the procedure is called. I don't know. But advocating for me as a patient, navigating lupus, chronic illness by myself, right? For me as a patient, what I had to realize was advocating wasn't just me talking to the doctor.
Yeah.
It also meant I need to be actively researching what is wrong with me. I need to actively be reading about this chronic illness that I have. Like, I went a really long time, and I'm going to tell you it's probably the anxiety. Yeah, it was the anxiety. I went a really long time just in complete denial that I had lupus. I was just like, okay. I mean, mm. I mean, and then it's like, I feel like I got hit by an 18 wheeler, and he was like, back up, she's not dead. You know, before I had to hit a wall, right? Like I had
Yeah.
to physically hit a wall where it was like I can't do this by myself and I need to really see what it is. And that's crazy. When I tell you that that is so crazy because for my kids, like my children that I have birthed from my womb, if I feel like anything is off, I'm on top of
Yeah.
it. I'm on
Right.
top of
Right.
it. Like when my daughter was like, "Hey, mom, I feel like I'm different than the other kids in class." I was like, "Okay, we're gonna get tested."
Yeah.
I
But it's
mean,
so hard for whatever reason, it's so hard for us to extend that to ourselves.
it's that grace. It's
Yeah.
that grace. And women in general do not extend grace. We are not soft and gentle with ourselves. We are not soft, gentle, and
No.
patient with ourselves the way that we are with others. And as teachers and mothers, it seems to be even harder because we are already in a nurturing framework and we nurture our own children, we nurture other people's children, we advocate for our own children, we advocate for our students. But when it comes to advocating for ourselves, I mean, you think about it, right? How many times as an educator, how many years have you been an educator?
18.
18 years. So this is my 18th or 19th year too, right? So 18, 19 years of educating. How many times have you felt horrible and you should have called out of work, but you came to work anyway?
I don't even know. Too
You can't
many.
even count. And
No.
it wasn't that you didn't have it wasn't that you didn't have the days. It wasn't that the time wasn't provided. It was literally they're counting
They
on.
need me.
They need
Or
me.
I think they need me so much that
I
I can't, is what it turned out to be.
yeah,
Because literally the only times I did call out was if I had a stomach virus.
right?
If I had emergency surgery, which has happened twice, um, or I had COVID.
Yeah, yeah. I remember getting COVID. It was June of 2020. And I remember talking to HR about it because, back then that's when everybody was like, you were self reporting to your job and all this stuff. And I remember saying to HR, I'm so glad this happened in the summer
Yeah.
because I would hate for this to happen in the school year. And looking back on it, it was like, girl, you had COVID.
Well, that's like our coworker who magically managed to have both of her children in the summer so that she wouldn't miss school.
Yes,
I,
yes.
I repeatedly tell her that will never happen to another human being,
Nope.
but that was the thing is she didn't want to miss the start of the school year with her new students and start off on the wrong note or an incongruous note.
It's so hard.
Yes.
So hard. Been there, done that. So hard.
Well, Delicia, I'm so glad that you took time out of your schedule to talk with me. Of course, it's always a pleasure to
Yeah.
talk to you, but I feel that everyone will benefit from hearing your story and you tell it so well.
Thank you.
Um, and I think you had the best points, especially about advocating for yourself and
Got it.
extending yourself grace, because
Huge amounts of grace.
all women are terrible at doing that. So,
Yes.
in my experience, so
Regardless of if you're a mom or not. Like literally as women, we have such a problem giving ourselves grace and being assertive because there's such a stigma around that. Oh, she's difficult.
yeah,
You ask for what you need, you ask for what you know is going to help you. You ask for your resources. And then I will say, before you go, the one other thing that I will say is pacing yourself. Pacing yourself. So as a person with a chronic illness, oftentimes we refer to ourselves as spoonies because how many spoons do I have to dedicate in a day, right? So if I wake up with 10 spoons of energy, what am I dedicating that to?
yeah,
And sometimes, again, moving into that advocating framework is telling people no.
yeah,
Like I want to have lunch with you, but I know that if I have lunch with you and I already feel bad, it's going to ruin the rest of my week. And
yeah.
so I'm going to have to say no. Can we reschedule? If that means that there's an after school program or there's an after school event that I'm so sorry, I can't come because I've been at work for 8 hours and I've given you everything that I can give in my spoons for the day. I got to go home and I have to recharge myself and I have to take care of my kids.
I
No
think
is
that's a great.
advocating.
I think
No
that's a
is
great
advocating.
point. Even if you don't have a chronic illness, like some days you just wake up or you've
Yes.
been running, 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 and then it
Yes.
catches up with you.
Yes.
And we all need to do a better job of pacing ourselves. I think that's a
Pace,
great point.
pace yourself.
Well, friend, thank you so much for
Yeah.
speaking with me. Um, Hang on for just a second, but I appreciate you
Thanks for having me
and
and my
thanks for
baby.
sharing with us today. Bye, Maisie.